Hello everyone, this is Tactical Lich here, and today we have a replay showcasing a Cathay army fighting against Kislev, two really strong factions in the meta right now. And personally, I think that Cathay do have a bit more strength in this kind of engagement, as they have a really overtuned set of artillery. Grand cannons, firing rockets, just spamming 4 of them in total, and you don't even need missile infantry to fight your battles. So in this replay sent in by Will Francesco, we'll be seeing a whole artillery spam fighting against the Kislev counter to the Cathay faction. For the army builds, other than the 3 grand cannons and 1 firing rocket scattered around the battlefield, we have a whole bunch of Jade warriors, 2 of them with halberds, providing a lot of melee fighting power to hold back the Kislev infantry. On top of that, we have a single celestial dragon god for a little bit more of an elite fighting force. On the flanks, we have a couple Jade lancers here and there, providing that mobility counter against the possible Kislev cavalry spam. As for leadership, we have a single Zhao Ming on the ground, bring only final transmutation, not even dragon breath, just really relying on all that grand cannon as well as the firing rockets to clear out the Kislev infantry. For the Kislev army build here, we have a front line of armored Cossacks as well as Tsar guards, using their armor and elite melee stats to hold back, pin down the Cathay fighting infantry. And at the same time, the more elite armor-piercing Tsar guards with great weapons, one of them the Da's Hearth Blades, will be attempting to break through the flanks with their anti-infantry attacks. At the back, we have a whole bunch of Cossack spams, some of them with spears, some of them without, mixing in with a couple Streltsies. They'll be closing in the gap using those arrows and bullet fire to basically shut down all the possible Cathay missile infantry and artillery. Now for leadership, we have the Ice Witch of Ice coming in with the Frostblade, as well as the very powerful spell right now, the Heart of Winter, as well as the Snow Leopard Summon. And also we have a single Patriarch on foot supporting this fight, using the Thor's Battle Hymn to provide extra melee attack, and the Sauliak's Lullaby to provide that healing for surrounding troops. And that's basically it for the army builds. No mobility from the Kislev army. Now let's get into the battle itself. The Cathay artillery spam is truly an oppressive combo. With a setup like this, it is pretty much guaranteed that 25% of your opponent's army will be gone before they can even march into combat. And this is exactly what's happening right now. The Da's Hearth Blades already taking substantial damage from the artillery crossfire, grand cannons shooting in, and also firing rockets for the first volley as well, putting them down to 62 models only and around 6k HP. On top of that, every artillery shot is taking down models, so that means they will not be able to heal up too much to recover that lost hit points, because, well, you can't revive dead models with regular healing like the Patriarch's Sauliak's Lullaby. On top of that, the Streltsies are now being targeted by the firing rocket, really trying to shut down that Kislevite range potential, especially the armor-piercing ones, before they can get into combat here. Now on the flanks, there are some Jade Lancers waiting to be activated, and Zhao Ming already transforming into dragon form, ready to intercept any units that's trying to push into the Cathay artillery box. Right now, the Tsar guards are being targeted by the crossfire from the Grand Cannon here, the armor piercing really doing a number on these Tsar guards. The Streltsies are already activating their Bile Blood effect, taking substantial casualties from the firing bombardment, and on the right of the Cathay flank, these Da's Hearth Blades are being charged by the Jade Lancers, a very sneaky and cunning maneuver here, using the charge bonus to dish out some pain, knock them over, especially when their formation is so thinned out, being unbraced since they're in the middle of a march, and also their numbers so thinned out, their formations do not have any depth. The Hearth Blades have no hope in stopping the charges of any cavalry, and the Jade Lancers will be pulling out with minimal losses. The Kislevite forces have engaged into melee combat, but the Tsar guards are already being forced to activate their Bile Blood effect just because of how damaged they are from the artillery. Good news is the Kislevite missile infantry have finally started firing, and the volleys of arrows have finally put a stop to the firing rocket bombardment. Though the only problem is the Cathay cannons are still online. Now more Jade warriors are pushing forward, trying to screen away the Kislevite missile forces, but there are some Cossacks with spears pushing close enough to start shooting down these grand cannons. which is great news for Kislev as well, as the cannon crew doesn't have a lot of armor and will be quite vulnerable to all these arrow volleys. But on the right here, unfortunately, the Da's Hearth Blade, despite the Da's Song of Winter Sunlight giving them great vigor replenishment, that was not enough to sustain their leadership. They will be routed before they can even do much damage to the Cathay army, a massive loss for the Kislevite forces. Zhao Ming in the process took some crossfire from the Streltsies and whatnot as he was trying to maneuver from the left of the battlefield to the right, but that was not anything too noticeable, and yeah, he will be just quickly extracting himself to fight in another battle. Now over here on the left, a Heart of Winter was attempted to catch all these Cathay units. The Jade Warriors are taking massive damage from the spell, but a great maneuver from Will Francesco here, Celestial Dragon Guard pulling away from this engagement, and most of that Heart of Winter would be wasted. Although the Grand Cannon did take some substantial damage from the spell as well, and they were shot up by a bunch of Kislevite crossfire, but now the Kislev missile infantry are now distracted by Zhao Ming the Iron Dragon as he plunged into their backlines, silencing all the armor-piercing Streltsies. Celestial Dragon Guard pushing into the backline as well will be threatening the Cossacks with spears. Cossacks being charged by Jade Lancers, they do not have the charged defense, nor do they have any anti-large like their spear brethren. So they will be taking substantial damage from these Jade Lancers as well. Funny enough, Cathay right now has total dominance in the mobility game. Normally it would have been Kislev who is the cavalry faction, but unfortunately this time there's no Kislevite cavalry, and Cathay will be free to run over all these missile backline from the Kislevite forces. On the Kislevite right flank, Tsar Guards taking massive damage from the Grand Cannon crossfire as well. They'll be fighting the Jade Warriors with halberds, but unfortunately, despite normally they would win this fight, the halberd Jade Warriors do have some armor-piercing weapon strength. And of course, the devastating cannon fire support, so unfortunately the Tsar Guards will be taking substantial damage from all these artillery, and the armor-piercing infantry, they will be activating their Bile Blood effect. Of course, the Jade Warriors will be wavering as well, and it will be a really dicey fight for both sides right now. On the far side, the Kislev missile line are in total disarray. Cossacks taking substantial damage from a single Jade Lancer charge. There are still some Cossacks with spears hiding in the forest, but they're not really activated anywhere right now. Celestial Dragon Guards just slicing and dicing their way through all these poor Cossacks with spears. They're heavily armored, great melee stats, so unfortunately the Kislevites, who are only armed with crude axes and fur, they will be slaughtered by the pride of Cathay, the defenders of the Dragon Emperor. In the middle, a Kislev blob of Tsar Guards and armored Cossacks seems to be beating back some Jade Warriors. Still, this is not going to be a good fight for the Kislevite forces, as Zhao Ming is here to support and dumping down the first spell in the entire game, an overcast version of Final Transmutation, draining away the health of all these poor Tsar Guards, armored Cossacks, and the Patriarch as well. On top of that, the firing rocket at the back is still firing. One of them is shut down by the push, the advance of all these Star Guards, but the other one, they were attempted to be shut down by the armored Cossacks, but unfortunately an interception from the Jade Lancers shut them down, allowed the Grand Cannon of Cathay to hold on just enough to start firing into this Kislevite blob. They have shut down the Tsar Guards with their armor-piercing missiles. The Patriarch is basically obliterated by a combination of Final Transmutation and Zhao Ming's melee power. As for the armored Cossacks, who have spent all their ammo and without any special protection, all they had were their armor to defend, but that is basically nothing in front of the armor-piercing cannons. Zhao Ming as well will not be stopped by these puny armored Cossacks and will continue his hunt against the poor Patriarch. At the same time, there are some really healthy Jade Warriors who have returned from pursuing Cathay units, were now converging into the middle engagement. These poor armored Cossacks being bombarded by the Grand Cannon right now will be activating their Bile Blood as well, as their leadership is already in wavering territory. Over here, Cossacks' regular variant will be cut down by the Jade Warriors, as the Jade Warriors do have better melee stats and heavy armor, and now the Cossacks will be breaking. Right next to them, the spear Cossacks in the forest are activated. These Cossacks with spears would not be doing anything to Zhao Ming despite he is in his weaker human form, especially now that their bonus versus large is useless. So with an overview of the battlefield, the Kislevite forces have lost their entire mobility game. Their formation is pretty much in shambles. Nothing can be really protecting the remaining missile units, not that they have anything left in the vicinity. And Cathay, despite their units are so scattered, they're basically dominating the battlefield with their mobility advantage, and the Jade Warriors are just so healthy. On top of that, a final transmutation, another upgraded version, drops in, draining the health of the Ice Witch as well as the summoned Snow Leopard, evening this fight for Zhao Ming quite a bit. Now, the angle of this camera might be a bit weird because they were in the trees and not exactly great for capturing their engagement. Anyways, Zhao Ming, despite being surrounded by an overwhelming force of enemies, he'll simply transform back into a dragon mode and quickly flies away, going to another engagement that needs his help a bit more, instead of getting stuck in a huge blob of enemy infantry or surrounded by enemy single entities. And one good fight for him is exactly here. Zargoth's holding on, barely but still holding on against the wavering Jade Warriors, Grand Cannon crew. But now Zhao Ming is here, diving down. The Quick Terror will be routing all these Zargoths. Despite the fire support from all these tattered Cossacks, the Cathay infantry might be running, but Zhao Ming alone is more than enough to push off these depleted Cossacks. Now the Snow Leopard is routed, armored Cossacks is being pushed away by Jade Warriors. All that's left for Kislev really are some Zargoths who are far away fighting off some Jade Warriors. There are some Cossacks with spears in the forest as well, but then again they will be tangled upon by a bunch of Celestial Dragon Gods and Jade Warriors as well. Sandwiched in the middle is basically hopeless for these Spear Cossacks to win. There really isn't much left for the Kislevite missile line. Spear Cossacks are routed, regular Cossacks are routed as well, so let us quickly hit the fast forward button as the Kislevite forces are being cleaned up by the Jade Warriors, Jade Lancers and whatnot. A Heart of Winter and is attempted into this blob again, but unfortunately the good micro from Will Francesco has successfully pulled these Celestial Dragon God away. Now the Ice Witch is being pursued by Zhao Ming, and she was forced to charge into these Jade Warriors, trying to get some support from the Zargoths, but unfortunately this will not be enough. Not only are they under the threat of a mighty dragon, but there are also more and more Cathay units surging towards them. Surrounded on all fronts, this is the desperate last stand for the Kislevites, but then army losses is hit, and that shall spell the end of the Kislev army. Massive thanks to Will Francesco here for sending in this replay. Now for the army performances here, you can see that the artillery from Cathay did a lot of damage, despite some of them being shut down by the Cossack crossfire. Especially with the Jade Warriors delaying the advance of their enemies, these artillery shots were able to fire for a prolonged period of time. In the end, one of the Zargoths were able to get into the backline and shut out the Grand Cannon, but the damage has been done. And that is why the Grand Cathay army can be so oppressive with their artillery, being able to obliterate whole units before they can even get into melee combat. All their opponents would have a really hard time getting close to the Cathay artillery box. Now for the rest of the army, Jade Lancers here, they actually did really well this game without any opposing mobility to stop them. They were able to freely run over Cossacks and whatnot, using their armor and charge bonus to oppress the Kislevite backline. Kislev spamming infantry instead of bears seems to be a good counter against Cathay, but Will Francesco's artillery spam is still too much for the Kislevite to deal with. Now for the mighty Iron Dragon Zhao Ming, a true heavy lifter of this game. Double upgraded final transmutation, draining the health of a lot of key targets, Ice Witch, Patriarch, expensive Zargoths, and also the Snow Leopard summon. He was able to take out a lot of key targets and do a substantial HP damage. As for the Kislevite army here, the Zargoths, one of them did really well, but unfortunately the rest of their brethren not doing so well, especially the Das Hearthblades, not even able to get into combat against infantry, being charged by Jade Lancers, bombarded by multiple Cathay artillery, and also finished off by Zhao Ming. 0 kills, 45 gold value. Truly a sad day for the Kislevite elites. For the missile units, armored Cossacks, this one did really well shooting up some of the artillery units possibly, and also shooting at Zhao Ming, but unfortunately that was not able to turn this game around either, as the Streltsies were being shut down, one of them being bombarded by artillery, the other one being dragged into combat by Zhao Ming and terrorized by the mighty dragon. Armored Cossacks, regular Cossacks as well, some of them were able to recover their value by shooting at artillery crews, but that's basically it. Engaged against Jade Warriors, Celestial Dragon Gods ran over by Jade Lancers, they were unable to utilize their full potential. As for the single entities, Patriarch did minimal damage as his main role today was healing. He was not even put on a bear mount, so all he does really is just to buff surrounding units, but that was not quite enough. Ice Witch attempted a couple Heart of Winter spells, but unfortunately Will Francesco here being on top of his micro today, pulling away the Celestial Dragon God and basically mitigating most of that Heart of Winter damage, and thus the Ice Witch did minimal damage as well. And yeah, that's basically it for today's battle. As you can see in this battle, the Grand Cathay artillery can be really oppressive, and I really hope that CA can do something about it in the soon to be released Immortal Empires patch. It is literally hours away from this video being published, so I guess we'll have the answer by then. But yeah, with an artillery setup like this, Cathay doesn't even need missile infantry, just spam artillery and be done. Anyways, that's going to be all for today's video. I hope viewers you enjoy it, and if you want to see more Total War Warhammer multiplayer battles, be sure to hit the like and subscribe to receive new updates from the channel. And if you have any exciting replays to showcase, especially with all the new and fancy stuff in Immortal Empires, feel free to drop by my Discord or send me an email with the replay file attached. I'll be sure to check them out. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in Immortal Empires. Tactical Lich, signing out.